Only reason this logo was built is because I broke a promise to my mom. And it turns out, years later, and looking back retrospect, that was one of the best decisions of my life. So let me take you back to the 1960s. So in San Francisco, it was the summer of love. And it turns out, if you talk to my parents, it was also the summer of love in Tokyo. So they fell in love. My dad proposed to my mom, but my mom said, I need two things before I move back to California. I need a house and a horse. She wanted the house to feel safe. She wanted the horse to be happy. And my dad delivered both. And if you're wondering, yeah, that's me, little Tony sitting on the horse. Sadly, when I was 18, my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she had one wish for me. She wanted me to be a doctor. So I remember her raising her pinky out to me and telling me yakusoku, which in Japanese means pinky promise. So I looked her in the eye and I grabbed her pinky and I said yakusoku. And just like that, I promised my mom that I was going to become a doctor. So I applied to UCI and was accepted to the pre-med program here, and I was doing everything right. I was a TA, I was working at the medical center. I took the MCATs, the medical college admissions test. I sent the scores to my dad, and he flew down to celebrate with me. And he came with his new wife, and she was a doctor. And she said something to me that surprised me. She said, your father and I think that you should take a gap year and go travel. I looked at my dad, and he hands me some money to travel, and I say, okay. I took the gap year, but I didn't travel. And that was the beginning of my broken promise. It turns out when I was at UCI, between going to my studies and doing brain surgery on lab rats, you would find me with a pencil, a marker, or maybe even a spray can in my hand. A lot of the groups on campus would have me do t-shirt designs and poster designs for them. Sometimes on the weekends, I would drive to LA and go painting with my graffiti crew. One time, my graffiti crew came to UCI, and we painted a huge mural that said UCI and had a big anteater. I had a friend who worked at the restaurant across the street and said, you should do an art show. Put your mural on a big canvas. I said, okay, let's do that. I took the money that I was supposed to use for travel and I bought a bunch of art supplies and a huge 25-foot canvas, put it in the art show, and it sold. And I remember the buyer coming over and shaking my hand and telling me, thank you. Typically, you don't hear that word associated with graffiti, but that was a little clue for me about this new path that I was about to embark on. There were more shows, and university hired me to do several murals on campus, a lot of them which would include a hidden anteater inside the artwork. Then I got a big call to be on national television painting a huge mural with Carson Daly. And for those of you who don't know who he was basically the Mr. Beast of our generation. So it was a big deal. I was like, man, this is going places. I kept saying yes to more and more art opportunities, and I kept saying not yet for my medical school. 2 years turned into 3, and at that point, I think my dad knew that my MCATs were about to expire. So he came down, took me to dinner, and he looked at me and asked me the one question that mattered. Are you going to med school? And I sat there thinking about the 5 years I've put into building this new path, the promise that I made to my mother. And I had no justification about what I was going to tell my dad, but I told him no. Shortly after that, my MCATs did expire, and I saw that dream of being a doctor disappear. The promise to my mother at that moment was broken. I remember being in the shower and having my heart racing and hyperventilating, and I was in a full panic attack, just going, man, what did I do with my life? I just threw it all away. I felt like I was falling out of life. But what I didn't know at the time, I was actually falling into it. Somewhere down around the bottom, I get a call, and on that phone was the head of UCI and the athletic director. And they said, Tony, we want you to help us build the UCI brand, to help build school spirit and help recruit more athletes to the sports programs. I'm like, why would they not be calling a professional marketer? They have the kid who was doing all the anteater murals around campus. To be candid, I felt lucky, right? I had doors opening for me that I didn't knock on. I'll tell you, as soon as those doors opened, I would run through them. So when the first thing I did, I called my graffiti crew. I'm like, hey, we're going to design a bunch of anteaters. And we did. We had some that were kind of, really cute and kind of cartoony. And then we had some that we really liked that were more masculine and muscular and looked like they had discipline, like an athletic anteater. After we had the anteater figured out, the next was we needed to create an iconic mark. So we looked at the letters, UCI, and we stacked them, UCI. We called that the stacked UCI logo. Now we had the logo, but the university was asking for a brand. So I had to figure that out. And it turns out if you look at all the greatest, the biggest brands around the world, they have this thing called a brand book or a brand system. It's like a 100-page document. Remember, this is the 90s, right? So 100-page documents where they were talking about identity and vision and mission and all these things in this 100-page document, and it clicked. This is what I've been doing as a graffiti artist as kind of a master class on the streets. I knew how to get attention. I knew how to build reputation and build that identity. I just didn't have a name for it yet. Turns out it was called brand marketing. So we take this brand system, we go to the chancellor, and he looks at it and he goes, oh, this is great. Because I don't want this to be an internal intellectual exercise. I want this to be an external visible project. And we're like, oh, okay, we're up for that challenge. And boy, did we make it a big visible project. We actually named the campaign, Build the Spirit. And it was all over campus, on campus, it was everywhere. You started seeing it, caps and t-shirts and hoodies, flags and buses and water towers. And it was on the tennis courts. Eventually ended up on the main basketball court at the Brent Center. Another thing happened this time. The school gave us our very first real Peter the Eater mascot costume. And it was huge. And the mystery was no one ever knew who it was. Like, how can you have this big anteater with all the muscles and no one know who he was? It was a secret. Someone came in and asked us, can you guys do foam hands and jerseys and face paint? You betcha. We did it all. We were building the spirit at UCI, and it felt amazing. A little side note, the person that was secretly in that mascot costume is in the photo here. So originally I had wanted to hear thank you from the hospital room, but now I was hearing thank you from the boardroom. I still felt guilty. And looking back, there was 5 years and almost 10,000 hours wasted on studying medicine and human biology and evolution. All this stuff. I thought it was wasted, but actually it wasn't, because I got a call. It was from a national retail store that wanted us to design packaging for them. So I studied how cereal boxes were designed. It turned out, as I was reading, they used science and psychology to trigger emotion in people's brains. And I read more about the front of the cereal boxes for kids, and you'd have cartoon characters and bright colors to trigger the sense of desire. And the back was for the parents, family values and vitamins and minerals, and to trigger the feeling of trust. I remember this stuff. I remember those survival signals. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. There they were. The 4 molecules that motivate all of us mammals to move. Dopamine gave you the feeling of desire. Oxytocin, trust. Serotonin, status. Endorphins made you feel relief. And that's exactly how we built the UCI brand. We just didn't have a name for this framework yet. Those new recruits who wanted to be a part of the team, that was desire. When those team members would throw that jersey on, they felt like they belonged to a trusted tribe. That athletic anteater, that's signaling status to everyone. And that new mascot that we didn't know who was inside of was running around, supporting students and giving them a sense of relief. If you're a real scientist, you're going to say this is an oversimplification of brain chemistry, and you'd be right. But for designers and marketers like us, this was a powerful tool. It was simple. It was useful. And we were able to use it for every one of our client projects. And now we call this the dose method framework. So we had this framework, but could we scale this? Could it go global? We were about to find out. I got a call from a small robotics company, and the founder had a dream. He said, I want to build the world's first walking, talking, auto-transforming robot. And he contacted me to be the chief marketing officer to help launch that robot. Now, fans all across the world at that time thought this was impossible. It would be a childhood dream for these fans to watch their favorite robot come to life and become real. That was a lot of pressure on me. But as a professional, it was a dream come true. So we got started. We mapped out hundreds of customer touch points. We mapped them to dopamine with red and oxytocin with blue and serotonin with green and endorphins with yellow. And then we launched. And it went viral. I remember the CEO pulling me aside afterwards. He said, Tony, come here, I gotta show you something. It's special. He had a video which he called the wow moment video. And we sat down and we watched all these fans record these videos, and they showcased the moment where they would open the box and they would start the robot and they would say, wow. And you could see it on their faces and you could hear it over and over and over again. They were saying, wow, but all I kept hearing was, thank you. And it was at that moment I realized I chose the right path. I just had to keep listening for thank you. They started small, and they got bigger, and then they got bigger. This weekend was Mother's Day, and I was working on my TED Talk. So I had a lot of time to reflect on these stories and these moments in my life. And I finally came to the conclusion that I did not break that promise to my mother. I actually honored a deeper commitment. She didn't want me to be a doctor. She wanted me to be happy and safe and bring meaning to life and have an impact. And I have that. I'm happy. I have my wife and son here, Justin and Jen. I love them both. We have a wonderful family. I have work that allows me to make an impact in the world. For my mom, it started off as a house and a horse. For me, it started off with a spray can, an anteater, and robots. So if your life path breaks, I want you to take a moment and just listen. Listen for the thank yous. That may be the path that you're meant to walk. Thank you.